there. Annie and Julie here. Now, before we dive into this episode, we wanted to give you a quick heads up. You see, we recorded this conversation a few months ago, and as you know, the world has changed quite a bit in that time.
However, the principles and strategies that we talk about in this episode are still very valuable, so we wanted to be sure to share this conversation with you. All right, without further ado, let's get into this episode.
I happened to be drinking my coffee one morning and looked at an attorney's website, and I saw an auction in 2 hours with a house that was half a mile from me. And I walked in the living room, I saw Elizabeth, my wife, and I said, "Hey, I'm going to go look at a house. Do you mind if I buy a house today?" And she goes, "No." I go, "Okay, great."
You're listening to Investing for Good, a show that brings you the stories and strategies of people who are investing to build a legacy for their families, create a meaningful and intentional life by design, and impact the world around them. And now, here are your hosts, Annie Dickerson and Julie Lamb.
Hey, Julie, how's it going?
Hey, it's going good,
Good. Well, I wanted to ask you because I know that you and I are very different in a lot of ways, but we're very complementary. But you had mentioned something in this episode that we're about to dig into about the types of businesses that you had always thought about or wanted to get into when you were in your 20s. So tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, it's funny. I've always been an entrepreneur from when I was a kid. I think I've mentioned to you, like I used to make these little Fimo. I don't know if you know what Fimo is, but it's a kind of like clay. And I know it's from the 80s. You wouldn't know. And I would make these little creatures from like a book, it'd be like a penguin or like a walrus or whatever. And I would go door to door, like selling these things for, back then, like $7, which is pretty high markup.
Wow.
And people would buy, and people would come back, and I loved it. I sold cookies. I, did the lemonade stand. I did all of that. And as I grew older, I always had an interest in parking lots because I, would look at the structure and understand, especially living and growing up in San Francisco, that, you have to pay like $20 like for 30 minutes or something crazy like that. And when you think about the potential expenses there, it's like little to none, yet you're paying so much money, And so I was always intrigued by that and laundromats, another, potentially low operation costs business and high revenue and those kinds of things. So love it.
It's so funny because I'm thinking back to recently when we saw Tony Robbins. Yeah. We had this awesome opportunity to sit in the seventh row to see Tony Robbins, which is crazy. It was amazing. But I remember one thing that he said, which is about the 3 types of entrepreneurs. And you're either an artist or creator focused on impact, or you're a manager leader focused on systems and processes, or you are an entrepreneur, which he defines as somebody who's open to taking risk. Yeah. And I think that you are such a manager leader, even from a young age. You could tell that's what you were focused on. And when I think back to when I was growing up, it's so funny because I was always focused on the impact. Yeah. And I remember walking the streets with my friend to pick up trash. And that was like what we did, or like I would create these clubs to create community. And, so for me, it was always that focus. And I think that's what makes us work so well together at Goodegg, is that, you're focused on the business aspect and the systems, and then I can be focused on the impact piece. And together we really make this thing work. Yeah. So let's talk about today's guest. We hinted a little bit at it with the parking lots, but today's guest is Sam Wilson. He's the creator of Parking Your Investments, which there is a pun in there because he focuses on parking. He helps people to invest in these great parking lot and parking garage opportunities around the country, which is so cool.
Yeah. And, the one thing that he shared with us that totally blew my mind was about how they're able to structure these deals and get the operator on the deal to basically guarantee guarantee a monthly income or an annual income. And even if they have to take a little bit of a haircut on what they otherwise would be able to make if they were to operate it themselves, when you think about that from an investor standpoint, I mean, it's like, there's so much risk in what we do. And you obviously have to understand how to mitigate those risks. But here it's like, it's almost kind of like a no-brainer because you're guaranteed payment from these people. It's almost like you had brought up, it's almost like that triple net lease where you're kind of like hands off and it's like, hey, you have an agreement, a contractual agreement to pay me this every month. And it is what it is, regardless of the economy or whatever happens. And they basically, the operator assumes the risk in the deal, not Sam and his group. Right. So I thought that was so interesting. So yeah, it was really cool to dig in and hear about him, talk about all the risks that are presented in parking lots and the opportunities as well. So it was a good one.
You'll really get to hear Julie fangirl out about this whole parking lot business. So here it is, our episode, our conversation with Sam Wilson of Parking Your Investments. Sam, how are you?
I'm great, Annie and Julie. How are you today?
Good. We're excited to have you here and really dig into the parking space. Now, okay, first, Sam, I got to say, so I'm sure I'm not alone in this when I say that I have driven by hundreds, if not thousands of parking lots in my lifetime, but I never stopped to think, someone probably owns that parking lot and is probably making money off of it.
Right.
And I think for most people, when they think about investing in real estate, they jump right into single family homes, right? They buy the home, they find a tenant, they start collecting those monthly rent checks.
Sure.
Was that your path as well? Or did you just skip right to the parking lots and you were like, oh, parking is where the real money is?
Right. Yeah, I absolutely wish, that I had skipped right to parking lots. That would be an epic success story. But no, I actually did, like everyone else, start in single family. My intro actually to real estate was an accident. I had sold a business in Indianapolis and had headed south, and I knew nothing about real estate. I just happened to have heard the word foreclosure somewhere. This was in 2013. I heard the word foreclosure and just happened to be perusing here in Tennessee. They list them sometimes on the attorney's website. They'll say, hey, this auction's coming up and this is the price. I happened to be drinking my coffee one morning and looked at an attorney's website, and I saw an auction in 2 hours with a house that was half a mile from me. And I walked in the living room. I saw Elizabeth, my wife, and I said, hey, I'm going to go look at a house. Do you mind if I buy a house today? And she goes, no. I go, okay, great. So I went over, looked at the house. 2 hours later at the courthouse steps, I won the auction and made a pile of money on it. And that was my intro to real estate. And suddenly I said, hey, wait, I did this once. I can keep doing this. So 60 some odd houses later, I had my fill of single family and started looking for my next asset class. And that is where I met my business partner out of Texas. And we started buying parking lots and parking garages. He's an industry veteran. So I partnered up with him, used his expertise, and brought my skill sets to the table, and we're off to the races.
Okay, hold on just a second though.
Sure.
You're drinking, I want to go back. You're drinking your coffee. You see this thing for an auction. What made you say, oh, I want to go buy that house, when most people would probably say, oh, that's, that flip the page, move on to the next news story?
Well, my background was in the trades. So I owned a construction related business in Indiana. So I already knew the fundamentals of housing. I could walk in a house, look at it and go, okay, this thing has good bones. It has terrible bones. I entered the home. Of course, it was vacant. The guy had passed away, and it's vacant. And it was actually up to our waist and trash. But I walked in the house and looked around, and I go, like, this is actually, my first step was obviously to see the house. Like, you don't always get to see them when you're buying foreclosures. I bought plenty of foreclosures sight unseen, but this one I got to see the inside of. And as we walked through it, I said, man, this house has good bones. Like, this is workable. So as opposed to flipping the page, I also knew that I knew the approximate values of houses in the area. And I just said, I can put, and I actually came within like $100 of my remodel budget on it. Just kind of walked around with a pencil and a napkin and said, all right, it cost about X, Y, Z to get this done, which was kind of a complete fluke. But again, all the stars lined up for the first one. Yeah.
That's crazy. That's like going on The Price is Right and getting within like a few dollars of the final like price. That's unheard of.
It was nuts. It was nuts, actually. I mean, it literally was the back of a napkin. I'm like, yeah, about it. Okay, let's go.
Wow.
And it worked out. I mean, not everyone's been as successful. I can write a book on how to lose money in real estate too. We've had plenty of those. Oh crap, I don't want to do that again. But that just comes with the territory, I think, when you're doing more things in volume. But that's how we got started in it. And the reason, I don't know if we want to go here yet or not, but I mean, the reason we transitioned out of single family was just because of, as the years have progressed, let's see, competition has increased, obviously, with the rise of bigger pockets. The number of people who want to enter the real estate space find single family the least kind of intimidating. Everybody seems to understand it kind of intuitively. So the number of players have increased, the margins have decreased, so your return on investment has gone down quite a bit, and your risk has also gone up. Compound that with also your labor rates have risen, and just finding quality contractors, getting them there on time. It became what I called running an adult daycare. So it was it was too much. I was already bald from my last business, lost all my hair in that, and so I said, you know what, I can't afford to lose any more hair. What little hair I have left. And just started looking for my next asset class. And that's when parking kind of cropped up. And I said, hey, wait, here's an asset class that's easy to manage. I have no tenants, toilets, or termites. I have no phone calls. I have no midnight calls. I'm not up late worrying about contractors. I mean, once we buy the asset and put it under management, we get a check in our bank account every month. And it's crickets after that, which is perfect.
That is so cool. It's so funny. Annie and I always joke how different we are. We're like so similar. We're like a puzzle. We fit together like this, like just like that. Like we're so much aligned, but like we're so different because I growing up and like not growing up as a child, but in my early 20s would drive by parking lots and be like, if there's any business I want to own, it's a parking lot. Because when you think about the margins and how much people have to pay, particularly here in San Francisco, which is where I grew up in my 20s. And it's like, you think about how much people have to pay on a per minute basis. And then you think about who's operating this thing. And oftentimes, well, like 10, 20 years ago, it was like a person. Now, a lot of them, you'll find that there's machines there and that's about it. But when you think about who's operating it and what could possibly go wrong there and how much people are having to pay, it's crazy. The margins are so crazy.
Right. On a risk adjusted basis, absolutely, it's crazy. Because I mean, and that's one of the things that we're looking for right now. Just with the everybody's talk of recession. It's like, gosh, I want to be in a stable asset class. I want to be in something that we have guaranteed leases for 7 years from national operators that are traded on the NASDAQ. Like I just I want my risk to be as minimal as possible. I think that's a blog post you guys wrote recently was about capital preservation. I'm like, that's exactly what we're focusing on. We're not hitting it out of the park, but capital preservation is huge. So yeah, you're right. On a risk adjusted basis, it makes all the sense in the world.
So talk to us a little bit about parking lots. Like, how do you, because I can talk to you all day long about multifamily, how we approach it, where we start. For us, it's like, we're looking at the teams really, then we're looking at the markets. We look at, population growth, job growth. We're looking at, job diversity, all those kinds of things. So when you're approaching the potential acquisition of a parking lot, what are some of the things that you look for?
Right. I mean, I think the key thing, and I would boil all of those things, I think, down to demand generators. Like, what's the demand generator? For you guys in multifamily, if there's no job growth, there's no income growth, there's population shrinking, there's no demand generator for multifamily housing. For us, there's a few basic things that are consistent demand generators in parking. One is dense urban areas. That's where we're always going to start. Obviously, you're not looking in rural areas. No one's paying for parking in a rural county town or whatever, So dense urban areas, it's going to be around places, for us, we love transient parking, so daily parking. So places where people need to go in and out of. It can be a government building. It could be a courthouse. It could be a jail. It could be a sports arena. It could be bar, night, weekend traffic. I mean, any of those things that are consistent demand generators, that's where we want to buy parking. So I don't know, does that answer the question?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. And so we're talking about, cities that are fairly busy, like somewhere like San Francisco, where there's just a lot of population, a lot of people kind of coming and going. Who owns these? So when you're looking to buy these, I mean, who are the sellers? Are they all kinds of different people? Are they institutions? Are they mom and pop? Are they companies that own?
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's a few big players in the country that own a few billion in parking. But the opportunity for us lies in that a lot of these have been passed down from generation to generation. So I've got a deal we're working on right now. There's 16 heirs. So just getting an LOI into 16 heirs' hands from like grandmothers all the way to great grandchildren. It's like, okay, so, a 7-day LOI expiration, for your listeners is letter of intent. For us, we kind of go through 2 phases as opposed to a traditional, here's just a straight purchase and sale agreement, which is what we always did in housing. In this space, we kind of offer an LOI so we can get through some of the preliminary negotiations without spending $2,500 on an actual purchase and sale agreement for that particular lot. So, but this LOI has to go to 16 different people. So, that's the opportunity right now, is that a lot of this stuff is still owned by, families or people that are retiring, or just, it's all over the map. The institutions are catching wind of it, no doubt, no doubt. And we're seeing stuff get gobbled up in mass faster than we would probably like, but there's still plenty of opportunity in even small spaces. So, if a lot only has 20 spaces, maybe it's too small for the institutional buyers. But for a guy like me, it might throw off $150,000 a year. And that's beautiful.
So why do you feel like right now at this point, institutions are only picking them up now? I would imagine that this was something that it just makes so much sense. Like, why do you feel like only now they're kind of picking up on that?
Hard to say. I'm probably not old enough to rewind 25 years. And, I wasn't thinking about parking lots 25 years ago. I wish I had an answer to that. But I really don't. I don't have one. Maybe it's just that they're kind of like the rest of us. They get an idea and go, oh, wait, we've got money behind us to spend. And especially right now with the credit markets being as wide open as they are, people are dying to place capital. So, if you got, big institutions that can leverage huge amounts of money, it just makes sense for them to go out and put it in a stable income producing asset.
So tell us about how these deals are structured. So if you have an investor that comes to you and they say, hey, Sam, I have $100,000. What does that look like in terms of like annualized returns? Is there equity on the back end? How do these things appreciate? With value add multifamily, we're really able to go in and force the value of the properties through the renovations, because you're buying a parking lot with nothing that needs to be upgraded or renovated. How are you just relying on like an average 3 to 5% appreciation rate, or talk to us a little bit about all of that?
Yeah, so parking has its own version of value add, I would say. One, obviously, is that because you do have a lot of these legacy owners that don't necessarily know what they're doing. This might be their only lot. They may be terrible negotiators with the parking companies or parking operators. So just to be clear, we don't actually operate our own lots. Our structure is a buy the asset, plug it in with a national operator. We're not in the operating business.
Got it. Okay.
So for us, it's a very hands-off transaction. That's the way we want it. We could develop our operating arm, but I think it's just not where we want to be. So that aside, lease renegotiation is one of your first steps. I'm thinking back to an asset we picked up last year, and we turned it from $115,000 because the owner was actually a billboard company on that particular asset. And they own the lot, and we said, hey, guys, you can keep the billboard, sell us the lot. They're like, okay, we're not in parking, but we are in the billboard business. Great. We went from $115,000 a year NOI to renegotiating it to $150,000. So, that's not quite 30%, whatever that is, 28%. I don't know what the number is.
Yeah.
But quite a bit of renegotiation without any really fuss from the operator. Because the operator was still making their mark.
Right.
And so they're like, oh, okay, well, we either going to get kicked out and they're going to put somebody else in, or we're going to pay them more money. So value add one is lease renegotiation. Two, of course, you can always stripe and repave a lot. So if it's a dumpy lot, no one's maintained it, which, a lot of your older owners don't want to take care of things. That's just traditional real estate 101. I think even in housing, so many of the opportunities in housing lie with the older people moving out of housing they just hadn't taken care of. So that still happens even there. Even garages, same story. If it's a garage that the owner doesn't want to put $500,000 in capital improvements in, those things do help drive up revenue. The other thing is figuring out, so if it's a full monthly parking lot, we want to turn that into a daily parking asset. So maybe it's canceling the contracts with the local businesses around there and saying, hey guys, this is going to daily parking. Mm-hmm. Sorry, but whatever you were paying it's not worth it to us. Mm-hmm. So, and a lot of those things you try to figure out early on, obviously before you buy the asset, during your due diligence, those are things you try to figure out. Mm-hmm. Can we renegotiate the lease? Is there demand enough that we can say no to monthly parking and go to daily parking only? Because obviously daily parking is going to generate way more money than a monthly tenant would. Mm. So that's how you do kind of value add. And then I think the second part of your question was about how we structure these. So, for us, if we syndicate a lot, which we're going to structure it as a limited partnership and a general partnership, we'll be the general partner, and obviously all the investors are in the limited partnership. And I will probably invest alongside in the limited and general partnership. I'll be the owner of the general partnership, and I'll invest also in the LP as well. And the way we're typically structuring them is a 70-30 split. Okay. So there might be a preferred return. Depending on the lot, we'll either up the preferred or, keep it down just because we don't want to overshoot the runway. But you're typically talking 6 to 8% on preferred return. Okay. So, it's not, in my opinion, coming from places where I've known that, with a lot more risk and a lot more work, we can generate 20. It's not that exciting, but I think, again, on a risk-adjusted basis, 6 to 8% is great. So we have that for the preferred return, and then there's a 70-30 investor to general partnership split on the equity on the back end. So the investors would still take 70% of the cut upon sale of profits.
And what does that look like? Is it like after all is said and done, after sale, is it like roughly about a 15% annualized return?
Yeah, probably closer to 17. Okay. I would say, 15 to 17 would be about an average number on that. Okay. And then I would probably say it's even higher. Yeah. Oh, okay. That's probably a fair number.
Okay. And then the cash flow, this 6 to 8%, do you guys normally pay that out on a monthly basis or quarterly or annually?
We've done them biannually here in the past, and again, it depends on the asset. Okay. Depends on how long we think it's going to take us to actually get everything in place where we can make distributions. But I think we'd probably in the future move to more of a quarterly asset distribution schedule. Okay.
It's really interesting to hear you talk about how you guys don't operate it. I didn't know that. I had no idea. Right. It's kind of like, I don't know, I'll ask you, is it sort of like buying land for mobile home parks, and then you have a property manager, but you just own the land, and then you have a PM company who comes in and manages all the tenants and the residents and things like that? Or like in multifamily, we have the asset management team, and then we have the property managers. Like, would you be more like the asset management team, or more like the landowners in mobile home parks, or neither one? Or what would that? I'm just curious.
Or a triple net lease,
or triple net lease.
Yeah. So it depends on the asset. If we can get the operator to agree to a triple net lease, that's great. Most of ours are going to be a net lease. So we'll end up picking up taxes on most of these. So it just kind of depends on how great the asset is. So that's the answer on the net lease side. And I'm not sure I'm going to understand your question entirely, but I'll shoot and see if this makes sense. So I would say it's more like you've hired a property manager for a multifamily asset. Except in this case, I don't, and correct me, I've only got personally one investment in a multifamily project. So you tell me, maybe, is in multifamily, do they guarantee you a payment of a certain amount? Or does the property manager say, hey, look, we're going to do a management agreement where whatever we make, we'll take 10% of, and you take the other 90, or whatever the split is?
Correct.
Is that more like what a property?
That's exactly how it is. Yeah.
Right. So unlike both of those, I think either from multifamily or from mobile home parks, for us, we get a guaranteed number. So the operator comes to us and they say, hey, Sam, we're going to pay you $200,000 a year. No matter what, we don't care if we make $1 on it. This is what we're going to pay you. So there's no real exposure for us.
Oh my gosh. Which means then that there's like very little exposure for risk for your investors.
Correct.
Oh my gosh. Right. That's crazy.
Which is what I was saying when we have a guaranteed lease from a national operator. Right. I mean, they're on the hook for 7 years to pay us that amount of money no matter what. I don't care if it makes $1.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Does that happen all the time or just sometimes?
It's the only leases we'll sign.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Well, now the industry standard to bring this full kind of cycle, the industry standard is not that. Okay. Is not that. Okay. But we just have set put our mark in the sand and said, guys, this is what we're doing. Now with that, I will argue that there comes a potential downside risk for us in that they're not going to guarantee a lease they can't pay.
Right.
So maybe we take a little bit of a haircut on the front end with them saying, all right, guys, you know what? So maybe we thought we could pay, maybe if it was what they call a management agreement, which is where they say, all right, so, the 90-10 or 80-20, whatever the split is, they're going to kind of be more conservative on their guaranteed lease side, but that's okay.
But that's okay.
Yeah, I'll take the haircut and just say, all right, great. Well, at least we have a guaranteed number and I can take that back to the bank, and that makes these super financeable.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So we can get 80% LTV loans on these, from banks because they say, what's your risk?
Right.
Great.
What is the max LTV that you guys have done?
80.
Okay.
After that, we're, it's, you got to bring 20% to the table. So that's just the way it goes.
That's interesting the amount of risk that is presented here, which seems like so little in this arrangement. And yet you are not, wanting to push the envelope, because I know even in multifamily, there's a lot of people who are wanting to push the envelope to like 85% LTV, 90% LTV with so many like potential risks. And this, a situation like this, I would imagine that maybe, you would feel comfortable to push it to 85, 90%, just because it's like guaranteed income.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's even
exactly right.
That's even better.
We haven't found a lender that to be fair, I bet we would if we found a lender that would let us do it, but we just haven't found them yet.
Got it. Okay.
So, and there's not that many lenders that lend in this space. You got to remember, when we go to a real estate conference, I'm typically the only one doing parking.
Yeah.
So you think about that in relation to the number of banks that understand parking, and they're almost as few.
We'll get back to our conversation with Sam in just a minute.
Have you been thinking about investing in real estate but aren't sure you have the time or the desire to manage the investment? Perhaps you're afraid, like we were, that you'll make the mistake of choosing the wrong mortgage or the wrong team and lose your entire investment. Well, that's exactly why we created the Goodegg Investor Club. We do the work of identifying solid real estate investment opportunities in the best markets around the country and then partner with you to acquire these investments, and then we'll all share in the returns. We'll identify the growing markets, strong, experienced teams, and the solid deals. We do all the heavy lifting of managing the tenants and the renovations, and as a passive partner, you get to enjoy all the benefits of investing in real estate: monthly cash flow, long-term appreciation, and the ongoing tax benefits. When we first discovered passive investing through real estate syndications, we realized it fit perfectly into our busy lives. We could put our money to work for our families, work less, and get more time back in our days so that we could focus on what matters most and discover our true passion and purpose in life. We've now helped hundreds of people invest passively in real estate syndications and are seeing the positive impact it's had on their lives. We invite you to partner with us by joining the Goodegg Investor Club today so you can start putting your money to work for you and get more time back in your day, because we know that when people have more time in their days, they can do the true work they were intended to do, and the world will be a better place. To sign up for the Goodegg Investor Club, go to goodegginvestments.com/invest and we'll take it from there. That's goodegginvestments.com/invest.
And now, back to our chat with Sam Wilson. Well, tell us a little bit about the appreciation, because one of the coolest things about parking is that they're not making any more land, right? So there's people out there building buildings and office space and multifamily. There's always more of that popping up. But parking is more and more rare, because every time a building goes up, you lose the potential for that to be a parking lot or a parking garage.
Right.
And so tell us a little bit about the appreciation aspect.
Sure. Land obviously in dense urban areas typically appreciates. And that's kind of one of the things that is kind of our bane of our existence right now, is that the prices that land is selling for is just, it almost makes parking a tough land or a tough buy, just because everybody wants to sell on a 2-cap. And for us, we can't buy on a 2-cap and have it make sense. So, that we certainly want to buy, but we don't want to buy with appreciation in mind. I think that's one of the golden rules of real estate investing is buy for cash flow and don't buy for appreciation. So for us, if we get appreciation, great. And if we don't, oh, well, like we're still making money on it. And I think that's kind of been our strategy. And I think it's one of the guns we're sticking to, is that we're buying for cash flow and not necessarily for appreciation. But if it happens, we're excited.
Yeah,
so,
right. Of course.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. It's the cherry on top.
No one's mad about it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Correct.
The cherry on top. If it comes, great. If it doesn't, no problem. The numbers still work, you know?
Correct. Absolutely.
And so tell us, I know that with your arrangement, it doesn't really matter. But with the advent of self-driving cars and electric cars, and, you know, does that impact the parking space at all?
Not really. I mean, I think, you know, we hear a lot about that, and that's always been a rebuttal from a lot of people, like, well, you know, self-driving cars are going to eliminate parking. Yeah, okay, so self-driving cars got to park somewhere too, first off. And then secondly, and maybe everyone's now sharing that self-driving car. I don't know. But secondly, if it's a surface lot in a dense urban area, it's going to get repurposed. Again, like just going back to our comment from a couple minutes ago, they're not making more dirt in downtown Dallas. I mean, it's just the land's not growing. Sorry. So we can always repurpose a surface lot, and if it's a garage, it can get torn down and turned into something else. So just, again, not stressed about that at all. Yeah, it's not even really on the radar, to be honest with you.
So one question that I want to ask that I'm super curious about is, I'm always wondering about the risks. When investors ask me about the risks with multifamily, you know, I kind of have my top 3 that I always let them know, like, here are the top 3 things that you should always consider when you're getting into these deals. So what would be like the top 3 risks that, you know, investing in parking lots presents for investors?
Sure. I mean, depends on what you're looking to invest in. One is your opportunity cost. So if you're tying your money up, and let's say it does have a 17% internal rate of return over the life of the property, that's great. You know, that's a pretty solid return. But let's say it doesn't. Let's say it makes 8%, you know, if it becomes just a stable workhorse investment. So what else could you have been doing with your money that could have made more than, you know, an 8% return? So I think for the right balanced portfolio, that's great. You know, and you know, to take some risk off the table, it's a great place to be. So one's your opportunity cost. 2 is that you lose your demand generator. So let's say that you buy a lot and it's next to a bar and weekend traffic, and for whatever reason, 5 of those businesses go under and the area goes to the dumps, everybody closes down. Like, okay, well, nobody's paying to park here anymore. There's lots of places here in Memphis, which is where I'm from, that, you know, there's just no demand. Like, I look at the lots and I wouldn't take them if they were given to me. And at some point, somebody may have, you know, 30 or 40 years ago actually had paid parking. Right. I don't know. Yeah. So, you know, you got to know your demand generators. And that's part of our due diligence, is actually, you know, going in the buildings around it, finding out who the tenants are. If it's a high-rise building, going in there, looking at the list and saying, who all's in here? Are these companies that are going to be here a long time? Oh, it's an IRS office. Like, okay, these guys probably are going to be here a minute. So, you know, looking at who the tenant mix is. So one is your opportunity cost. 2 is what's the demand generator. And then I guess thirdly would be, you know, let's say you do have a 7-year lease, the demand generator dies off. I guess it kind of ties back into number 2, but your operator doesn't renew at the same price. They could say, hey guys, look, you know, it was a great 7-year run. I'm glad that you guys got paid, but we can only afford to pay you half what we did before. Right. So that can absolutely happen. Another risk would be just buying it wrong. I did a video actually on YouTube here about a month ago, and there's 2 lots in Memphis. One I offered the guy $1.2 million for, and 200 yards down the road, I wouldn't take it for 20 grand. So until you know a city and really know it well and know the days and times and when people park, you can really buy wrong if you don't have a really in-depth understanding of the market you're buying in. So, you know, those are obviously all risks. So if you just go out willy-nilly and start buying parking, you're probably not going to be in the business for the duration.
I feel like recession is so much more relevant to everything that you're talking about here as it relates to parking lots and the risks, because, you know, with multifamily, it's like, well, in the recession, people move down, they move to the B-class assets. Everybody always needs housing. But in a recession, these businesses could go belly up, like you were saying. All these demand generators could evaporate overnight, and could significantly impact the potential projected returns over the long run, and even the cash flow that's there too. So, mean, would you agree with that?
Maybe a little bit. Again, you got to look at the length of your leases to start with.
Okay.
So unlike, I think, multifamily, I mean, we do have 5 to 7 year leases that where at least you say, all right, for this window, we're getting paid X amount of dollars.
Uh-huh.
In multifamily, I don't think you have that guarantee.
You're right.
Might have,
yeah.
You
don't
might
have
not make a dollar ever.
Yeah.
Right. So we're at least 7 years in the black.
Okay.
Out of the gate, which is a good place to start your safety net.
Mm-hmm.
Beyond that, I mean, if the whole world turned upside down, I think all bets are off for everybody anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not a perfect asset,
right,
I think, to mitigate all risk. But you're right. Do again, knowing what your demand generator is. If you're, and I hate to say this, but like when times get tough, things like courthouses and jails, they don't see less traffic.
Right. Yeah. I was just going to say that.
I mean,
yeah,
I hate to say it, but that's just an economic reality.
Mm-hmm.
So people are still going to pay for those spots. Maybe if you were banking on the bar and weekend traffic, yeah, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
That may suffer. Or ball game traffic. I mean, that's another huge generator. If you own a gorgeous lot outside of a stadium, I mean, people aren't paying $250 a ticket to go to see a sports game.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's super important to do your due diligence on the type of surrounding companies that are around there that are, driving the demand there in that lot is so critical to really foreseeing the projected returns on the back end and throughout the hold period. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
So tell us a little bit about wanting to scale and wanting to potentially syndicate deals. Have you guys done that at this point?
We have syndicated a deal, and it was great. Actually, that's kind of one of my skill sets I'm bringing to the table with my business partner is that he has not syndicated up to this point. And I said, look, we can buy more if we present these deals out to our investors.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the plan is to buy as much parking as we can possibly get our hands on, as long as the deals make sense.
Mm-hmm.
And doing that, we're going to need partners to come alongside of us as passive partners in the deals.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, I hate to be as vague as that, but we got more lines in the water than we can count.
Yeah.
And when they start hitting, we absolutely are going to need partners to come alongside.
Yeah.
And what are some steps that you're taking to, be able to do bigger and, more syndications and find investors? And I mean, that's, as we know, in the business that we're in, that's not an easy feat. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, obviously attending conferences, I was at a conference in Los Angeles last weekend. I'll be at the Best Ever conference here in a couple weeks, and just reaching out to everybody we know, working with you and Julie and Annie.
Mm-hmm.
Shameless plug here. They're great to work with. But working with you guys and really just developing that framework that we can bring investors into, and they understand what we're doing and how we do it clearly. Because, I think there's a lot of things we always have in our head, but getting it out and disseminating that information to the public is a lot harder than maybe it should be. So yeah, I mean, that's it. It's really talking as much as we can about parking, presenting those opportunities, and just seeing where if it's a good fit for other partners. I mean, even just finishing up our last deal, we had the deal go full cycle, and there's people already calling saying, "Hey, we want to be in on your next deal.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us what you got going on."
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I think that's part of it, is just gaining traction with your current list of investors that have made money with you and saying, "Hey, we like what we're doing."
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing better than happy investors. That's always what you want.
Correct.
Yep. And for our listeners, Sam is one of our Rockstar coaching members in our Real Estate Accelerator program, which helps people learn to raise capital and to scale their real estate investing businesses. And Sam has really made some tremendous progress in the short time that you've been in the program. And we absolutely love, a lot of our coaching members are involved in multifamily, as we are, but we love that you are in this, I guess it's a fringe asset class, something that's, not a lot of people know about. And yet the same model applies, where you provide value to your investors, you educate them, and then you get them into these great opportunities.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, it's been great. Can't complain at all.
Awesome. All right. Well, should we move into the impact round?
Let's do it.
All right. So we're going to ask you 3 questions about investing for good.
All right.
So the first question is investing in yourself. So what is one way that your investments are helping you to live a better life?
Sure. Let's see. I've given this absolutely no thought whatsoever.
Go for it.
This is perfect. It's off the cuff.
Yeah.
I hate to say that because I think I read them this morning. I'm like, I need to think about that.
No worries.
First off, I'd say that health is wealth.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know a lot of people with way more money than, they got a lot of money, but they're not healthy.
Yeah.
And I just go, man, the first thing, Elizabeth and I get up every morning at 4:35. By the time I've kind of done my morning reading and journaling and praying and thinking, like we're at the gym by 6, work out for 45 minutes and home by 7, ready to hit the day. So for me, investing in just my personal health is like top priority. And I don't think that a lot of people can, just because of the craziness of a job and everything else, can really afford to do those things.
Yep.
Like, hey man, I'm going to, spend an hour and a half prepping for the day, spend 45 minutes prepping my health for the day, and then actually get into the day.
Right.
I think having that on ramp every, 5 days a week is a really a big benefit to what we do and how I invest in myself. Outside of that, gosh, I read I read as much as I can. Read every day on my, part of my checklist for every day is, did I get my reading done?
Yeah.
And I've got like 15 books that I have a due date on my tape to a wall with all the books that I want to read by June 1st. It's like, read all these books by June 1st. Okay. I got things to do. So that's how I invest in myself. Is really feeding my mind and feeding my body, and then eating really well. Like just I'm not a health freak, but I do love to go to the gym and I love to eat a lot and good food a lot. So those are the 3 kind of things I do.
What are the top 3 books that you're reading or that you could recommend that you've already read?
Shoot. The top 3. I've loved the book.
Is there one? I'm just curious.
I'm gonna have to put it, give it to you in the show notes.
Yeah, we'll put it in the show notes.
Because I've really enjoyed it. Like, I've read it this year. Like, you see a lot of your own internal deficiencies, and you're like, gosh, like, oh, that's why I do that. Right. I should stop doing that. But it's been very, very, very positive. So, and I can only remember book names, but it doesn't come to the top of my mind.
No worries. Didn't mean to put you on the spot. Cool. Yeah. Cool. So,
no, you're good.
Second question is investing in others. So what is one investment hack or strategy that you might be able to share with our audience that would help them kind of catapult their investing journey?
Is that okay? So how to invest into others, or how do I invest into others?
So, what's just one thing that you might be able to share with the audience that you think they could, benefit from? If it's like, it could be something like for me, something I love to share is like using whole life insurance policies as like a boost to all of the investments that I make. Like, a lot of people are like, what? I didn't know about that. So is there anything that you might know that, like a little secret or something that you've done, with your investments, with your money, with your strategy that you could share?
Gosh, I mean, I think one is always talking to your friends about self-directed IRAs. I mean, the number of people that just know nothing about that.
Yeah.
And I feel like in the investment world, like when you hear the word real estate, if you've done 5 minutes of due diligence, you're going to get beat over the head with have a self-directed IRA.
Right.
But 95% of the world doesn't function in the real estate world.
Right.
So they've never heard of it. Like, wait, I can, and I mean, just this week I placed money in a, I think we already mentioned it, but in a multifamily syndication via an IRA. And I'm like, gosh, like how many people don't know about this?
Yeah.
I've even had buddies fund, when we were doing the housing business, I had them do unsecured funds to our housing company through their IRAs with promissory notes so we could flip houses from the auction.
Yeah.
And so I think that's, just, and they didn't know about it until I went to them and said, hey man, your wealth advisor is costing you 2% a year. And by the way, we're in a huge up market. And have you made any money with him in a decade? No.
Yeah.
Okay, well, here, why don't you come make some money with me?
Right.
Fire your advisor and come make money with me.
Yeah, that's such a good one. And I think you're the first one to mention that. And that's such a good one. It's one that I had to discover in like reading a blog post in some place buried in bigger pockets. Like,
right.
And so that's such a great one. And like you said, not a lot of people know about that, and the minute I found out about that, I stopped contributing to my 401k and told my husband to stop contributing to his 401k and we moved everything over that we could after I left my job, moved everything over to a self-directed IRA, moved that into real estate, and have watched it steadily grow over the last 3-4 years. It's been great.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. And you don't have that fear of like, oh man, is the stock market going to crash? Like what's going to happen? It's like, the investment that you've made, where that asset lives, how they're making money, how your return is coming back to you. And, it's not like this, like hope and pray strategy, which is totally how what happens.
Everyone seems to function. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I was sitting in the airport the other day and I heard this lady, she's reading off her phone. She's like, oh, whatever market was she was watching. She's like, oh, it dropped by blah, blah, blah points. And I'm like, I'm so glad I'm off of that roller coaster.
I know.
Like, I don't care.
Yep.
It just feels really nice.
It does. Yep. Yeah. I love that one. Okay. Last question is investing in the world. What is one way that your investments are helping make the world a better place?
Yeah. So this is going to go way off topic. My wife we actually own a laundromat here in Memphis.
Oh, cool.
So this is kind of another little investment nugget we have, which actually the cash on cash return, it's finally actually starting to make money. But we purposely live and have this laundry facility because where laundry facilities thrive is not in your higher economic areas or, income areas. Mm-hmm. But that laundromat is probably the biggest outreach that we could ever possibly have in doing everything from like free laundry days to, a lot of these families can't afford pictures with Santa.
Yeah.
Believe it or not. So like, having the bank pitch in all their Christmas ornaments and Christmas trees and having neighbors be Santa and like doing pictures, bringing photographers in, do stuff like that all the time. And I think that's been one of our biggest outreach opportunities. Yeah, we're making a little bit of money on it. But it, in the end, allows us really to give back, I think, to a community that doesn't have many people really giving to it in those capacities. And it's the most highest rated, most reviewed laundromat in Memphis. It's got like 235 star reviews.
Wow.
That's so awesome.
So it's that's Elizabeth's like nurturing project. I'd give her 99% of the credit on that, but it's still something that we're pretty involved in that I enjoy it as well.
Awesome.
So it's great.
For
cool. I didn't know you guys had that.
Yeah. And for a laundromat to have even one 5-star review is almost unheard of. That's
right.
That's
right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. How do you get a 5-star review from a laundromat? To be honest, you sink a ton of money into really nice equipment and keeping it super clean and keeping it staffed.
Right.
That's what everybody always comments, like, oh, it's clean and there's nice people that work here.
Yeah.
Oh, well, imagine that.
The bar is so low, and I love that you guys have really taken it as an opportunity to give back. And to, most people just walk by a laundromat. They don't even think twice about it. They're like, oh, there's probably broken machines in there, and there's no Wi-Fi, and then you've taken this and really turned it around into this hub, this community hub where people because it's such an opportunity for people to meet each other and to grow that community. So that's incredible.
Oh, it is. There's like kids reading rooms and like the librarians come and read to the kids, and there's bookshelves throughout. There's lending library. And then there's a lot going on there. So it's fun.
How cool. How cool. Okay. Well, Sam, we've covered a lot, but I'm sure we're just skimming the surface of this whole parking space and all that you are doing. So what's the best place that our listeners can go to learn more about all that you're doing?
Sure. You can go to our website, parkingyourinvestments.com. You can also reach out to me directly via email, which is sam@parkingyourinvestments.com. I will respond. So feel free to reach out anytime and would love to connect through those sources.
Awesome. Sam Wilson, creator of Parking Your Investments. Sam, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank you, Annie. Thank you, Julie.
You've been listening to Investing for Good, the #1 podcast for people like you who are investing to build a legacy for their families, create a meaningful and intentional life by design, and impact the world around them. For more resources, check out goodegginvestments.com/podcast. And be sure to join the Investing for Good Facebook community. And don't forget to subscribe and give us a 5-star review so we can continue to bring you amazing new conversations every week. Until next time, keep investing for good.